Hello, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's session, Community Action. We have a great lineup of speakers today who are doing some great on-the-ground work all across Ontario. My name is Mackenzie. I'm a Program Development Coordinator at the Invasive Species Centre, and I will be your moderator for this session. If you have any questions throughout the course of anyone's presentations, you can feel free to drop them in the question box, and I will read them to each speaker after their presentation is complete. So without further ado, so I don't take up any speakers' time, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Kellie Sherman. Kellie joined the Canadian Council on Invasive Species as their coordinator in 2017. Her previous employment included coordinator of the Ontario Invasive Plant Council and stewardship technician with Kawartha Conservation. Kellie's main role with the CCIS is project management, all things communication, fundraising, partnership building, and event planning. Kellie lives in Peterborough, Ontario. Healthy ecosystems provide the foundation for Canada's natural diversity and promote health and well-being of residents and visitors, as well as support many businesses and industry. Invasive species threaten and impact Canada's ecosystems, economy, and society, and they disrupt natural ecological processes, destroy important infrastructure, and interfere with common societal activities such as outdoor recreation. They're also far-reaching and know no boundaries within Canada and beyond. This presentation will review in further detail initiatives the CCIS has put in place to connect and collaborate with chapters, organizations, businesses, Indigenous groups and leaders, industry and government across Canada and beyond to stop invasive species spread. So welcome, Kellie. I'm going to pass over screen sharing capability to you, and you can go ahead and take it away from here.
Okay, can you still hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
And it's the full one, not the smaller, because I have a second presentation open.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I hope the conference is going well. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to participate thus far, but hopefully I can the next couple days. So yeah, just thank you again for having us. So today, so I'm Kellie Sherman. I'm the coordinator of the Canadian Council on Invasive Species, as was mentioned. So today I'm just going to briefly kind of touch on a lot of our coordinating and collaborative action across Canada and a bit beyond, but mostly focused in on really our recent expansion in national collaboration across Canada, specifically with our chapters and councils. Okay, so I know some of you probably seen me present, provide a little bit of background information once again. So yeah, the Canadian Council is a federally registered not-for-profit organization that was essentially initiated in around 2008. We were created as a result of really a multi-agency Canada-wide meeting, one of the kind of first national invasive species forums in Ottawa. So there was a collective call from all agencies who attended for really a strong and national and inclusive organization to really link the work that was happening and also the other organizations involved in invasive species together across Canada and really link those wide-ranging perspectives. So we have evolved a little bit. That's actually a screenshot from our board of directors Christmas meeting, just December 2020 there. And we're actually today guided by a 4-chamber board of directors, along with various working groups and things like that. But our 4-chamber board of directors is made up of federal, provincial, and territorial governments, Indigenous, industry, and invasive species organizations from across Canada. A lot of our board are also involved in our working groups and other initiatives. We also we've expanded quite rapidly and recently with staff. We have around 6 staff, including some part-time, but we're all based across Canada, and some is made up of those that work directly for Canadian Council and others for some of our chapters, which I'll talk about. Again, just briefly what we do, some of you are aware of this, our focus is really on pathways. We really tackle those pathways that are spreading invasive species, because that's where it really starts. We're seeing the spread through various pathways, things like firewood, horticulture, aquatic and terrestrial recreation, pet and aquarium trade. We've recently kind of expanded in some of the pathways, things like don't let it loose, which I'll talk about. we really try to link and connect groups across the country together to work on these pathways and to work on the campaigns associated with these pathways together, resulting in more improved coordination and the sharing of information and success stories, lessons learned, that kind of thing. Recently, we have tried to put a more focus on our bilingual resources. I know that we don't have everything we have create is bilingual, but we are making that a priority so we can be all inclusive across Canada. So this is kind of our model for collaboration. As I mentioned, the board of directors, which I'll touch on briefly again, our chapters, which I'll touch on, our advisors, our working groups, which again I'll touch on, our national behavior change programs, and national events. These are the kind of key models of our collaboration. We have a few other little things that might fit in, but this is the key kind of prongs. So again, I just put the slide in here to speak once more to our board of directors. As I mentioned, it's 4-chamber board, but this slide just shows the diverse range of our board. These are the logos of the members of the board. So we have those invasive species councils and chapters, industry, Indigenous, and government as well. So really diverse, really getting a wide range of perspectives from various stakeholders. Our board of directors really does guide our strategic development and initiatives and really provide some key input on our overall structure and input into our campaigns and that kind of thing. High level input into our campaigns. Next, in one of the areas that we've really grown recently is our chapters. So some of you may be a little bit more or new to this term. So a chapter for us is defined as a provincial or territorial not-for-profit or charitable organization that is that province's or territory's invasive species council and has a core mandate of helping prevent the impacts of invasive species within their jurisdiction. So really, there, as many of you are aware, across all provincial and territorial councils, there is that strong desire to build a strong network and build efficiencies in programs and operations, that kind of thing. So our goal is to really build that strong national inclusive voice that supports and links the range of provincial and territorial invasive species organizations across Canada and from coast to coast to coast. So another one of our goals is to have one chapter recognized in each province, territory, and our region. As mentioned, we've really made significant progress regarding growing and collaborating with our chapters. So we actually have 10 official chapters currently. So we just grew that actually by 2. So we are growing, and really our overall objective is to support the growth and strength of the councils, facilitate regular dialogue across chapters on mutual strategic operational issues, and work together to enhance the coordination and delivery of a lot of our national campaigns, which I'll touch on. Recently, we have established quarterly meetings with our chapters, and then meetings in between if necessary. And we also work on one-on-one with chapters, where we can provide guidance and strategic input for them. And we also work one-on-one with chapters to apply for funding grants to ensure that we're coordinated in our delivery of programs. And we're kind of working more on things like sharing resources with each other so we don't duplicate resources, more partnership opportunities, that kind of thing. Really, our meetings lately have resulted in a really significant dialogue around resource development and sharing, area behavior change programs, and just overall coordination. It's a slow but sure process, but we're really seeing really strong connection across Canada with our chapter model. And we are a really quickly growing organization, so key partners like the chapters are really important to our growth and continued strength across Canada. So I'll just touch on another kind of one of the prongs of our collaboration, which is advisory or development groups. So in the past, we've always kind of worked with advisors on our campaigns and some of our strategic initiatives and projects and that kind of thing. Advisors are really key, as you all are probably aware, to ensuring those national perspectives and input into our programming and that kind of thing. Sometimes groups can get quite large, so we've kind of revised our model lately to focus more on including our chapters, as they do represent those various perspectives from their province or territory anyways. And then while we're working in that working group or advisory model, we take more of a strategic approach in getting other input from outside stakeholders like industry, like the pet and aquarium trade, government, that kind of thing. So we actually think it's benefiting us, but as well as our stakeholders, because we're not occupying their time with a lot of meetings and that kind of thing. So we can have more of that one-on-one input and perspectives into something that we're developing with that working group. We also coordinate with international programs and groups where possible. So things like the Play Clean Go US Steering Committee, firewood campaigns, partners with our North American Invasive Species Forum, which I'll touch on, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to touch briefly on our behavior change programs. I could talk, for an hour about our programs, but I wanted to just make sure I could get in as much as I could in the time that I was allotted. So my contact information will be at the end if you guys want to feel free to email me or contact me or anything like that. But I just put up some logos and some titles there of our key programs. I'll just touch on them briefly. So a lot of people might be familiar with these. We're always constantly growing and improving them, and taking a strategic look at them and recognizing and identifying ways that we can increase the partnership into these national programs. So I just want to just briefly provide a quick update on each of them. So the Clean Drain Dry program, we actually entered into a contract with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans almost 3 years ago to do a pilot project for a national campaign in BC. So we're in the last stretch of this. We're actually finishing up the end of March. So this was a 3-year pilot program with BC to test resource development and partnership building within that province. And then we are going to expand it beyond BC, but we do want to do up a bit of a plan for that and make sure it's strategic. However, you can actually go on and become a partner outside of BC now on our website, and we just do support you with the resources that we've developed through BC. But just briefly, the success of this program in BC was really, the program itself was very successful. Total program partners exceeded over 70, and a key part of that program was sign installation, which you can see those signs on our website if you're looking for examples of resources, and they installed over 365 signs in BC alone. So that was quite extensive, and again, we're looking to expand this campaign, but you can sign up on our website currently. Play Clean Go is another one. It's been ongoing since I started in 2018. Again, you can sign up as a program partner and get access to graphic resources, graphic assistance, the brand standards to do your own development of the program. Recently, we've worked a lot with Parks Canada on this project. We have a small contract with them, and Parks have been coming to us and getting us to work with them on specific resources for their areas. We worked closely with certain chapters like BC. The Maritimes is entering into projects like this, and we're also closely with NASMA now, who runs obviously the US campaign, and so we try to collaborate and connect on, just stay connected on this program and share resources and coincide where we can. Buy local, burn local, briefly, again, you can sign up on our website. Again, we're always growing and evolving it, but you can sign up as a partner. We have a number of resources available. Again, we're working really closely with Parks Canada on this. A number of parks have adopted this program, as well as expanding in the maritime areas. Be Plantwise is another one. You can sign up as a program. We don't have as many resources for this, but again, something that we're looking to address over the spring or summer. But there are a few resources that we have, specifically this National Voluntary Code of Conduct, which is a really great resource, especially for regional councils looking to engage their horticulture industry. And then just briefly, we've done some development in National Invasive Wise Marinas program that's also on our website. We're also working with our working group model right now with our chapters to develop and enhance Don't Let It Loose, so more to come on that. And we're also looking to get into national community science. We hosted a very successful community science workshop in March of 2020, and so we do want to grow and work with our chapters to expand community science and reporting across Canada. So finally, just to wrap up, events is obviously another one of our collaboration areas. I know many people have probably attended our National Invasive Species Forums. Our last one was held in Ottawa in person in 2019, seemed like eons ago. And then of course we had actually our community science workshop in the March of 2020, just before everything started to change last March. But really just to hone in on the next really key event, which is going to be awesome, and we're going to have a wide range of international speakers, is our North American Invasive Species Forum, which is a collaborative event between Canada, US, and Mexico, and it's rotationally done. So we're up next on the docket to host it. Registration is now live. You can go to the website there, NAISF2021.ca, to find the link to register, which will bring you to feed loops. You'll see it's a very good platform to see speakers, sponsors, that kind of thing. The agenda is very draft right now, but lots of good information to come. And then recently we did participate in the Winter National Invasive Species Awareness Week, which we held webinars, which we had quite a large attendance. And the goal of that was to really just informational share. And then we're going to continue our more action-oriented week in the spring. It's actually coinciding with the North American Invasive Species Forum, but we'll make sure it coincides nicely, and we'll have toolkits and things like that available for partners to engage their followers to get outdoors and take action against invasive species. And we'll wrap it up there.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That was a great update on all of your great programs that you guys have going. I didn't have any questions come into the question box for you, but if anybody, I will put your email into the chat, and if anybody has any questions, they can send you an email as well, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Belinda Junkin. Belinda is the Executive Director of the Ontario Invasive Plant Council. She has over 25 years of experience in association management and has worked with the OIPC for the past 3 years. Belinda earned her master's in business administration from the Ivy Business School of Western University and is a proud graduate of Fleming College. She has a passion for the outdoors, enjoys camping and travels with her little trailer, as well as many other activities with her grandchildren. Community action is more than people on the ground removing invasive plants. Her presentation will review how the Ontario Invasive Plant Council enables, facilitates, and drives community action through all of their work. Belinda, I'll pass over screen sharing to you, and you can take it away from here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Kelly. And we should be live. Is that good?
Looks great, Belinda. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. On this, it's somewhat overcast, cold day. I wanted to, as I looked at the theme here in the presentation, the Ontario Invasive Plant Council is community action in practice. The OIPC is a community of people working together on a common goal, driving and enabling action against the threat of invasive plants. We are a community of information, people, and an extensive network. Oops. Founded in 2007, with a group of people recognizing the need to provide a coordinated provincial response to the growing threat of invasive plants. We continue to accomplish this today through our leadership and expertise, and we are a forum to engage and empower Ontarians to take action on invasive plant issues. At our very core, OIPC is a very successful demonstration of community action. We are managed by a board of directors as a not-for-profit association, and collaboration and community action again is demonstrated through the makeup of our board. We have representatives from municipal, provincial, and federal governments, conservation authorities, non-government organizations, academia, industry, as well as concerned citizens. OIPC is also a chapter member of the Canadian Council of Invasive Species, and we're working to provide a coordinated national response. So well beyond the provincial borders, but our focus is provincial and to leverage, as Kellie said, material information research so that we're not duplicating services. We're a small team, a team of 3, that provide program and resources to create awareness and prevention, education, and coordination on invasive plants. And this could include anything from identification, control, removal, monitoring, or recommending alternative native plants. Our audience includes the public, professionals, and management, anyone that's involved in the fight against invasive plants or has an interest. We respond to public inquiries through our info@ email address on our website. And pre-COVID, we did a lot of public outreach at trade shows and various speaking engagements, again, providing awareness and education. We have 2 very active committees, and they are the Horticulture Outreach Committee, Collaborative Committee, which is focused to identify invasives and potentially invasive horticulture plants, to phase out the production and sale of invasive horticulture plants, and to advance the production and the use of non-invasive, including native species. The HOC's most popular and successful program is the Grow Me Instead, and a guide that goes along with that identifies common garden plants with invasive tendencies and non-invasive plants that could be planted instead. This program was designed with the hobbyist and the professional gardener in mind and meets the needs of both. Outreach to support the Grow Me Instead and create awareness and education again has been delivered to countless garden clubs, trade shows, etc., and continues. Our second active working group is the Ontario Phragmites Working Group, whose purpose is to facilitate effective, efficient, and environmentally responsible management of invasive Phragmites in the province of Ontario through public education, awareness, and stakeholder engagement. We host a Google Groups which shares information. We host their website, Ontario Phragmites Working Group.ca, opwg.ca. And just recently they worked and helped with the development of a new best management practices guide that includes species at risk on Phragmites. These documents are available on both the OIPC and the OPWG website. And more recently, this group and OIPC worked together with the NCC and ISC to help leverage OIPC's extensive network of contacts and experts to gather information on Phragmites through a survey, through research, and to host a discussion as part of the Green Shovels collaborative project that you've heard about in some of the other projects, other presentations. The OIPC supports both science and research, as well as community action and outreach, which we deliver through our conferences. We've recently completed the OIPC annual conference, the Ontario Phragmites Working Group conference, and there's more to come. Our best management practices guides and programs for invasive plants, support for municipalities, our Grow Me Instead guides and programs, and webinars and workshops as we transition in response to COVID and a change in learning to transition to online learning. In the past year, we've completed 5 new best management practices guides, and these are all now available for free on our website at ontarioinvasiveplants.ca. And this includes the new Phragmites new Phragmites document, which includes species at risk. We have 3 other best management practices guides in development today that we are in the process of finalizing: Norway Maple, Oriental Bittersweet, and Wing Euonymus. Watch the website as they will become available in the coming months. There's 2 new technical documents that we're currently developing: Himalayan Balsam and Phragmites, a technical document. Is there a document that your organization needs? We are seeking sponsors to develop more BMPs and other materials. If this is something that you or your organization might be interested in, please contact me. The 5 documents listed on this page wouldn't be possible without the support and sponsorship of others. And now for the exciting news. We're currently working to expand our best management practices guide into a program that will include a series of online workshops and training. These programs will target both the concerned citizen, volunteers, and professionals learning how to identify and manage invasive plants. Watch the OIPC website or our social media to learn more. We're starting out with Phragmites, and it will be broken into 2 levels. So level 1, which would be geared to the awareness, creating awareness and identification and manual control methods, and then moving on to level 2, which would be geared and targeted to a professional. So we're working to expand this program to cover other BMPs that we have developed. And if you have any comments, suggestions, ideas, please forward them on to us. Early detection, rapid response. As Lauren spoke earlier today, OIPC has been a partner with ISC since 2015 on this program, since it commenced. Our past work includes open houses, youth summits, workshops, training programs, developing new educational material, and providing local hands-on support and training in various regions throughout the province. OIPC's role in the current EDRR program, in partnership with ISC and Eastern Ontario Model Forests, includes an Eastern Ontario focus this time, providing webinars, workshops, one of which will be a plant-focused workshop, so stay tuned for more on that, and the development of 2 new technical documents, which is the Phragmites and Himalayan Balsam. This work is all possible because of funding from the Ontario Trillium Fund, and for which we're very grateful. And we are excited and pleased to work with ISC and Eastern Ontario Model Forests to deliver these programs. And in closing, I think OIPC is truly an example of a community of information, of people, of experts coming together, working in collaboration to share information, to enable and empower people to take action to reduce the threat of invasive plants. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them, or you can reach me, send me an email, or contact me online here.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Belinda. What a great overview. I did have one question come through for you. Do you have any knowledge about a starry stonewort working group?
There has been a starry stonework working group, or a group working on it for, I'm going to say, almost 2 years now. If there's someone that wants information specifically, they could reach out and I'll gladly share. It is something that we were made aware of almost 2 years ago now, and have been lobbying loud and hard to try to get provincial and national attention, as it's in national waterways as well as provincial. So it's tricky that way in that it affects 2 regions, but there is a group working on that today.
Definitely. Okay, thank you, Belinda. And as she mentioned, if that doesn't answer your question, you can send her an email separately. So without further ado, I will introduce our next speaker. Thanks again, Belinda. Okay. Okay, so our next speaker this afternoon is Sophie Monfette. Sophie is the coordinator of Ontario's Invading Species Awareness Program, a partnership between the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters and the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. For over a decade, she's been working to equip the public with the knowledge and skills needed to foster actions that aim to prevent the introduction and spread of invasive species and conserve Ontario's resources for future generations. Recognizing the impacts of invasive species on Ontario's natural resources and the role of outdoor enthusiasts in their introduction and spread, the OFAH delivers the Invading Species Awareness Program, a multifaceted program that responds to emerging threats and reaches millions of people each year with information about invasive species prevention, monitoring, early detection, and management. With COVID-19 impacting the typical programming delivered by staff, 2020 was a year of new and/or modified approaches to program delivery. This presentation will provide a summary of ISAP's efforts to connect and foster relationships with our key audiences during a global pandemic. So with that, Sophie, I'll let you take it from here. You should be able to share your screen now. Oh, now you should be able to share.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Say, that is okay. Let's see. I think it is thinking. Okay, how does that look on your end?
Looks great, Sophie.
Okay, well, thank you for the introduction, Mackenzie, and thank you to the ISC for the invitation to present a brief update on what the Invading Species Awareness Program has been working on. Before I jump in, I just want to give a shout out to my team because really they are critical to the success of anything that the ISAP delivers each year. And without them, I would have nothing to share with you at these forums each year. So a little bit of background, I work for the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, and the OFAH is the largest nonprofit charitable fish and wildlife conservation organization in Ontario. And because of our focus on conservation, we do have 4 different conservation programs that are housed at the OFAH. And so Ontario's Invading Species Awareness Program is just one of the ways in which the OFAH is involved in conserving Ontario's natural resources. ISAP is a long-standing partnership between the OFAH and MNRF, and we're really focused on generating education and awareness, facilitating monitoring and early detection, and supporting surveillance, control, and response initiatives for invasive species in Ontario. Seems to be frozen. Is it changing on your end?
No.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I just like to always highlight what we are trying to achieve each and every year. And I think knowing everyone who is part of this panel and who I would imagine is in the audience, I think we all know it's really important to connect with and engage with members of the community involved in the activities through which invasive species can be introduced or spread. And so anyone who is familiar with the ISAP knows that we're really focused on connecting with key audiences, whether it's anglers, hunters, trail users, boaters, and connecting with these key audiences to increase their knowledge and awareness of invasive species. And that's the first goal each and every year. But we're also interested in connecting with these audiences to identify and encourage deliberate actions that they can take to help mitigate the introduction, establishment, and spread of invasive species. And so we've got this puzzle here that kind of represents that this often requires a multi-pronged, boots on the ground approach. But of course, well, we've all heard of COVID-19. So this COVID-19 has impacted our typical programming. And so as mentioned in the introduction, 2020 was a year of new or modified approaches to program delivery for the ISAP team. And so without that face-to-face contact that we typically have with our target audiences, we have relied heavily on social media to deliver some of our core messaging. And that messaging can range in subject matter from increasing awareness of high-risk species or even increasing awareness of key pathways of spread. And so I've just captured a screenshot of what, a typical 2 weeks worth of social media content might look like coming from our program. And this year we've been fairly successful in reaching our audiences with over 1.6 million digital impressions and over 104,000 engagements. But within our program, we talked a lot about this growing means of reaching people and the ability to share our messages, but also when we're not able to meet with them on the ground, how we can create a more personal or connected experience with the people who are tuning into our social media channels. So this year we have tried to build a suite of videos that will help us kind of translate that awareness into something that feels a little bit more personal, a little bit more actionable. And so what I've captured here is what our YouTube channel looks like, and I can say that our staff in the early months of the lockdown went out on their own with their cameras to put together videos that would be used to try to create that more personal experience with our audiences. And what they tried to do was create these videos that reflect a typical conversation we might have when we're attending events or attending a trade show, or something that might address frequently asked questions that come in through the Invading Species hotline, or again, when we're attending events. And I think we've had a lot of success with these videos. We've had a number of views generally on our ISAP YouTube channel. And more recently, as we've rolled out some of our identification videos, for example, the big head silver carp, grass carp videos, we've seen a notable increase in the number of views with over 134,000 impressions and 28,000 minutes watched. And I think that was in the last week and a half. So I think it's been a really nice way for us to kind of bridge the gap between the virtual outreach we're delivering through social media and the typical boots on the ground outreach that we're known for any other time of the year. But continuing on that path, we've tried to do our best to remain connected and deliver virtual presentations and support virtual information sessions whenever possible, regardless of who is making the request. And some of the ways in which we've adapted our approach I've highlighted here. For example, we typically at this time of year are delivering Operation Bait Bucket, a program that is focused on connecting with anglers on Lake Simcoe on the hard water with the messaging about how it's important to not dump your bait and help to not spread invasive species or disease. And so because we couldn't be on the hard water with anglers this year, we decided to host a virtual photo contest, encouraging people to get outside, get outdoors, enjoy these recreational opportunities, but also be mindful of the messaging of the Don't Dump Your Bait message, and to share their experiences with us with that hashtag of Don't Dump Your Bait and tagging the program. And so we have been able to reach a fair number of people and had over 1,200 engagements with our program. And anyone who would like to see the winners, I encourage you to check out the February edition of the ISAP e-newsletter, because the 4 selected photos have been shared in our e-newsletter. We also supported the virtual Great Lakes AIS Landing Blitz, a binational coordinated campaign focused on increasing awareness of aquatic invasive species in the Great Lakes, alongside messaging such as clean, drain, dry. And so our staff worked to put together a week-long targeted social media campaign that focused on not only clean, drain, dry messaging, but also on high-profile species for the recreational boater pathway, such as Eurasian water milfoil. I believe they covered starry stonewort. And this is a screen cap of the video that our AIS specialist put together to help people identify Eurasian water milfoil and identify the steps they could take to help mitigate its further spread to new water bodies. And we were successful in that campaign in reaching our target audience over that week. And the Toronto International Boat Show offered us our first crack at a virtual trade show. So we did sign up and we built a virtual trade show booth where visitors to this trade show could download resources, watch videos, learn about the ISAP, and also connect with ISAP staff if they have any questions. And we were also fortunate to have the people planning the Toronto Boat Show to reach out and ask us to deliver 3 virtual seminars to attendees focused on AIS and, of course, the recreational boater pathway. We're frequently producing new educational resources, but I did want to mention 2 that are more topical for us at this year in particular. We have created a new fact sheet focused on helping anglers identify or determine if they have a grass carp, and specifically what to do with that fish if they do believe they have a grass carp. And it's really helpful because it does walk through some of the common lookalike species and how you can differentiate between them. And so we're really excited to continue to distribute this resource in hopes that it will increase the number of well, not increase the number of reports of grass carp, but increase the quality of the reports that do come in through the Invading Species Hotline and other reporting tools. As many people have mentioned throughout this forum, gypsy moth was a popular species last summer, with many agencies being contacted with reports and or questions. And so we worked with the Invasive Species Center to build this FAQ document in hopes that it will help people at the remainder of last year, but also moving forward this year, with identifying gypsy moth, finding those answers to those frequently asked questions, and knowing what to do moving forward. I'm not going to spend too much time on our reporting tools, as Brook Schryer will be addressing these tools in the final session of this group today, but we did facilitate these tools and deliver them for Ontario with a number of calls made to the Invading Species Hotline. We've confirmed over 2,000 reports through EdMaps Ontario, and the Invading Species Awareness Program project within iNaturalist continues to grow in terms of observations and total number of members. I'm very happy that despite COVID-19, we were able to continue to support provincial efforts to eradicate water soldier from the Trent Severn Waterway. The field season did look different, and if any of you tuned in to Rob McGowan's presentation, you'll have received a lot of the details around the 2020 field season. But fortunately, we were able to amend our field safety protocols to include considerations for COVID-19 PPE, as well as reduce the number of staff in the boat to maximize opportunity for social distancing, and then get out on the water between July and August and monitor the areas that needed to be monitored in order to inform a large-scale herbicide treatment in October. And of course, we're very pleased that the results of this monitoring show continued success with the treatment, a 38% decrease from 2019. And again, if you tuned in to Val's talk, Parks Canada led that application in October, and we're really excited to start gearing up for the 2021 field season and continue to focus efforts on this project. Also, if you tuned in to Rob's talk, you would have learned that there was a new wild population reported in Red Horse Lake in August of 2020, ISAP staff were in a position to be able to respond rapidly and conducted that early site visit to confirm presence, and as well followed up to delineate the population to inform what we were hoping would be a herbicide treatment in October. Fortunately, because of partnerships, we were able to treat this population on October 8th and are currently planning to return to this site in the spring to assess efficacy of this treatment. But I talked about partnerships because despite our ability to be able to rapidly respond on the ground, this would not have happened without the support of groups like the Invasive Species Center, who provided funding, MNRF, who provided technical guidance and connections to groups like MECP for permitting, and the Kemptville District for species at risk considerations. And of course, there was some dedicated local residents, one who assisted with reconnaissance and monitoring, and another who provided some financial contribution to the treatment. And so overall, it was a really great example of how working together can help facilitate rapid response. Our wildlife biologist, Keith Monroe, already talked about this earlier today, but I did want to highlight that we're leading the establishment of a wild pig surveillance program, and our efforts have been focused on development of training resources for volunteers, education and outreach, and of course, the acquisition of resources and equipment required for project delivery. We're really excited about this program as it's really going to build support for participants and teach them how to properly set up and bait their trail cameras in order to detect and ultimately report wild pigs in Ontario. And so this visual is just an example of the handy kind of 2-pager protocol that covers everything from where to set up your camera, how to identify wild pig signs, how to bait for pigs, and reporting your sightings. And I think this is a really great collaborative between the OFAH and the Green Shovels Collaborative that is responding to an emerging issue for Ontario right now. We're also spending some time to build the foundation for another community action program. This is funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and it's a 3-year project focused on the recreational boater pathway in the Durham, Haliburton, and Kawartha Pine Ridge area. Through this program, we'll be offering training workshops, volunteer handbooks, toolkits, resources for any interested participants wanting to take action against invasive species. And what we're really looking to do is increase capacity to get the clean, drain, dry message out there and ensure that the participants and the people that they're connecting with are taking deliberate action to prevent the introduction spread of invasive species. So if you're a part of this program, whether through a lake or cottage association or just an interested volunteer, you will become a trained steward with the knowledge, tools, and equipment needed to help the ISAP with outreach to recreationalists, such as boaters. And I'm very excited to say that we have a newish program that's going to be hopefully reinstated in 2021. So for many years, we have delivered the Invading Species Hit Squad, which was a team of summer staff that were delivering invasive species projects in communities across Ontario. And we did have to take a bit of a hiatus for 2 years, but the hope is that 2021 will be the year that we reinstate this connected network of youth who will be delivering on relevant invasive species focused activities in communities across Ontario. And so we have submitted applications to hopefully have 17 students working with 15 partner organizations. And once we get approval, we'll be moving forward with virtual training workshops and getting this network set up to really enhance community action in the summer months. So I'm very excited at the thought that we can bring this group back together again in 2021. So I'm going to leave it there. I've offered you a snapshot into some of the work that we've been able to do, but if anyone has any questions or of course wants to learn more about the Invading Species Awareness Program, I encourage you to send me an email or give me a call, because I think that the more we can communicate and the more we can work together, the more we can achieve. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that great presentation, Sophie. Excellent news about the HIT Squad students. I hope you're successful in your application.
Me too, fingers crossed.
Okay, so next I will introduce our next speaker, Erling Armson. Erling joined Ducks Unlimited Canada as a field biologist in 1980, implementing wetland restoration projects and biological inspections. From 1982 to 2001, Erling was the Kingston, Ontario area biologist, leading our conservation work in Eastern Ontario, including wetland restoration, enhancement, securement habitat projects, as well as leading our involvement in dealing with invasive purple loosestrife. Erling became a program delivery leader and was involved in most aspects of Ducks Unlimited's programs, particularly the habitat conservation, research, fundraising, and newer public policy program. Erling is presently head of land securement, invasives, and northern programs throughout Ontario. His presentation will cover the impacts of invasives on wetland and waterfowl habitats and an overview of Ducks Unlimited Canada's invasive species programs in Ontario. So Erling, I will pass it over to you and you can take it away. There you go. Perfect.
Everybody, you can see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Looks
Perfect.
good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. What I'm really going to talk about is just kind of some of the work that we've done over the last few years and to the present in regards to invasive species, early detection, rapid response, and some fairly intensive and extensive control work. As you know, invasive species can impact our native habitat extensively, and certainly that goes with wetlands as well. And everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with Phragmites. I'll talk about a few other invasive plants that are impacting wetland and waterfowl habitat. And so for those of you who don't know anything about Ducks Unlimited, it was established back in 1938. And it's a national nonprofit conservation organization dedicated to conserving wetland habitat and its associated upland habitats throughout Canada for the benefit of waterfowl, wildlife, fish, and habitat species at risk, and the people that live in the area. There's kind of three components to DU. There's DU Canada, which I work for, DU Inc., which is the US counterpart, and DU Mexico. And that was set up because waterfowl use North America as a flyway. And if you don't do things in each one of those jurisdictions, whether it's the wintering areas of Mexico or the breeding areas of Canada, then you're not going to be able to effectively deal with managing waterfowl. So without further ado, we'll talk about a few of the invasives that have impacted wetlands that I've been involved with and DU's been involved with in Ontario. The first kind of one that we got involved with was a plant called European water chestnut. And so I'm just kind of looking at a nice, diverse wetland habitat on the left. And then some, as you know, invasive species can quite often come in and take over an area very rapidly. This is an area on the lower Rideau near Kingston, Ontario, where European water chestnut came in and started to cover the area. And of course, once it'll continue to get more extreme and block out sunlight so that it impacts other submergent vegetation and the general habitat quality and oxygen levels and so on just go downhill, and it isn't of much value to to Fish and Wildlife that use the area. This was a project that was initiated 6 years ago and ran up until the year, this past year. The main partners of it were the Invasive Species Center and the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. You heard Sophie talk about the HIT squad. That was a great program for us. So that allowed us to have, you know, some students to help manually remove European water chestnut, as well the province through Canada-Ontario agreement provided significant funding for the first 5 years. And the other thing too was we tried to engage and involve volunteers as well, and we had some success with that. This is just a map showing Kingston, the Rideau Canal coming down, and kind of the initial locations of European water chestnut on Wolf Island, directly out from Kingston. So we were made aware of a small patch of European water chestnut. I believe it was by Environment Canada staff out in the field in Bayfield Bay, in this bay here. And so that was kind of a couple of years before we got involved. So we got involved. We had a meeting with MNR and OFAH, Invasive Species Center, and it made sense for us to take the lead on it, as it was it was definitely an invasive plant that would impact waterfowl habitat. And we had an office right in Kingston. So with their help, we bought a boat and hired a coordinator to go out and find out where it was, and basically pull the plants. Luckily, this was a good situation where it wasn't hundreds of acres that it was covering. So that was nice. So it was indeed it was a fairly early response before it got out of hand. And you can kind of see what we're doing there. We kind of tried to measure the dry weight bucket loads of the material that we were taking. So it started in 2014 and actually ended in 2019. And the graph kind of represents a continual reduction in the amount of plants that we were seeing out there and that we controlled. And we would just pull these out, put them in bins, take them to a disposal area, let them desiccate, and that would be that. We also, again, as I said, tried to involve more youth in it and some local volunteers. So there were really kind of three main populations that we were dealing with. Populations on Wolf Island out from Kingston. There's another population that we dealt with differently. We using a herbicide and near Kingston, the lower reaches of the Rideau Canal. And then there was at Black Rapids on the upper reaches of the Rideau Canal towards Ottawa, around Manotick. And this is a picture of that site on the right-hand side, is a picture of that. And we tried to have kind of community pull days for the first few years when there was a fair bit of it, and we needed a lot of people on the water. And so that worked out pretty well. That second site that he mentioned is near Bell Island, and we just identified it as we were doing both. We did surveillance as well as control work. So we would scout around to the local islands and areas in kind of high probability areas that we thought it would occur. And lo and behold, we did find a 2-acre patch at Bell Island. And so this is an area though that had a tannery nearby and it had been contaminated. So we elected to use, treat it with a herbicide so that we weren't, when you pull all these plants, it can disturb the soil and put things into suspension. And so we really didn't want to do that in these slightly contaminated sites. So we elected to use Diquat, and that's actually what the Water Soldier folks use as well. But this was the first time that a herbicide was applied to water chestnut in Canada, and that was in 2018. And the results were excellent. We went from, 2 acres of solid water chestnut to virtually none. Although Parks Canada, we kind of took them out the last year or so, and they kind of got some training from us, and thank goodness they took it over last year, and they're continuing on as it is part of their jurisdiction regarding Parks Canada. So that was a nice handoff. And again, another example of showing how, you need different groups to help out in the end. The second invasive aquatic species I'll talk about is parrot feather. Now, it's not very common, but when we identify it, we really should get on it because it can be a problem. And the states are really dealing with it pretty bad as well. So again, from good to bad, again, just covering up the water, not allowing sunlight, reducing oxygen contents, reducing biodiversity, just kind of going from a biological diverse habitat to a homogeneous type affair. And this was a site that we have conservation staff that are out in the field from spring to late fall and early winter, looking at sites to conserve or restore. And this was a site that we came across through the course of our field surveys. And the landowner said, hey, here's a little, it was a relatively small pond and it was isolated, but it turned out to be parrot feather, which is a prohibited species. And so we worked with the Ministry of Natural Resources as well as the Invasive Species Center and the landowner. The landowner lives on site there in a nice log cabin. She realized that I don't know how it got in there, but she realized that if it was prohibited, that she had had an ethical means to try and work with us, and she did. And so it worked out very well. We got some funding from ISC. Landowner helped us, and we made multiple trips there. Basically, what we did was we drained and removed any of the water from there into an isolated area, and then backfilled it with some material. And so unfortunately, she lost her pond, but she lost the parrot feather as well. And though I don't have a finished picture of it, but it basically gave her, we kind of turned her pond into a vegetable garden. So it wasn't a bad trade-off. And lastly, good old Phragmites. And obviously, again, we're going from good, patches of open water and emergent vegetation to about as dense a wall of vegetation as you can imagine. And as you can imagine, nothing really can live in there. Turtles can't go march through it. It's just so overgrown that it's just a biological desert. So we've been involved over the last few years with a few initiatives. I know NCC will be talking about this site. So I just mentioned it and that we were involved in the early stages of it. And it was a multi-partner project with the M&R and NCC and hunt clubs and landowners. And we were there also to provide some mapping. So you can kind of see the large patches of Phragmites at Long Point on Lake Erie. Certainly that gave an idea of some of where the large areas of Phragmites are. But as we found out, and as M&R found out as well during their investigations, that didn't cover, we probably missed about 50% of it. So it certainly was more prevalent than what's shown there in red. In any event, it helped start it off. We've always been supportive and are supporting the permitting for obtaining the emergency use registration for the herbicide to be able to be used in wet conditions there. And so we're supportive of it. So that was kind of our initial look at it, and typically the techniques for controlling it, and I don't know if we'll ever eliminate it, but it would be using the herbicide on a multi-track kind of vehicle, such as the Marshmaster that they have. There's a few of them. So that effectively is a systemic herbicide that kills the Phragmites. And then typically it seems to be more efficient to roll it down again with a specialized piece of machinery so that you could burn it in a fairly compact and controlled manner. Now you can't burn everywhere, so sometimes they use cutters and flailers and that just to get rid of the dead standing Phragmites. Okay, and lastly is really one of our most recent collaboratives, and this is with 3 other entities, one being the University of Toronto, one being the Federal Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and MyTax, which is a private or a nonprofit funding organization that kind of provides 50% typically matching funds on a variety of research-oriented programs that are funneled through universities with partners. So in this case, we have a partnership with MyTax and the other 2. Really, the University of Toronto provides the postdoctoral person in this case. Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada provides expertise and actually holds the permit for what I'm going to tell you, and we will provide, MyTax provides funding, and we provide both the matching funding as well as some in-kind services and properties that we own that could be used as study sites. So I guess what I'm gonna get at here is the biological control of Phragmites, which is kind of exciting. And I remember in the old days, along with many other groups, working on trying to control purple loosestrife through the beetles and using biocontrol. And it takes a long time, but that was very successful in the end, in my opinion. And we're just at the beginning stages here in Ontario in terms of determining how feasible and effective biological control is. But we're starting off, and we'll just cross our fingers. The two agents or of biological control are a nocturnal moss and their Echinacea nerica, Echinacea geminipuncta, pretty dull looking critters. And it's actually the larvae that, when it's in the stem, creates the damage on the plant and death on the plant. I'm not going to go into detail about this because I believe tomorrow Rob from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada will be giving a presentation on this. But I guess
Erling, I think I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap up pretty quick. We still have 2 speakers to go, and I don't want to run out of time or run too late here. But yes, you're right. Rob will be speaking at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning on the biocontrol agents. So if you want to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'll just say that last year and this year we've selected sites to release eggs, and this year release larvae, and so we're hopeful that we'll get some good results there. So the research continues, and that's it. I'm sorry I overdid it there.
No, that's great. That was a great presentation, and I think we can all see there's lots of awesome work going on with ducks right now. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that Phragmites biocontrol project, definitely tune in tomorrow morning to the Phragmites session at 9 a.m. So I will introduce our next speaker now, who will be Terry Rees. Welcome, Terry. Terry's been the Executive Director of the Federation of Ontario Cottagers Associations since 2004. FOCA is the largest waterfront landowner organization in Canada, representing 50,000 member families in 520 community associations. Terry is a member of many regional and provincial committees focused on biodiversity, water and water management, rural economic development, and more. Terry's focus lead on Ontario's Lake Partner program, the largest volunteer water quality monitoring program in Canada, and has volunteered on lake associations and with environmental initiatives for over 30 years. So welcome, Terry. I will pass over screen control to you, and you can take it away from here. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks so much. How are we looking there?
Good. That's perfect. Looks great.
Great. So thanks for having us. Thanks to the ISC for hosting this event. It's nice to hear what everyone's up to, and hopefully everyone will learn a little bit of something that they can take forward from this event. So as you mentioned, we're a not-for-profit organization, been around since the 1960s, and our mission is all around thriving and sustainable waterfronts across Ontario. So we've got 500 member community groups all across Ontario, and that's a subsection of the approximately 250,000 waterfront property owners in Ontario, who collectively own about 15,000 kilometers of shorelands and 50,000 hectares of important ecological property. So an important landowner community that needs to be part of this discussion. So we represent these folks and do that through education, communication, and through government advocacy. So invasive species is always a top priority amongst our members. They're highly sensitized to the state of the waters that where they live, and so I know there was a bit of a least favorite list, and these aren't three of the necessarily the ones that are always top of mind, but certainly the three that we end up talking a lot about as part of our discussions with our members and through our members. So like a lot of our partners, we use a lot of co-produced materials. We have used this Cottager Action Plan to talk about best practices and things you need to consider. That comes from the province, from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Since the boater pathway is a huge aspect of our concerns, since we all live on the water, clean, drain, dry, and the boater pathway is a big part of our messaging from year to year. And so trying to get people to be sensitized to the movement of watercraft is something that we're often keyed on, and we do that in a number of ways. We do talk about gardening, bait, firewood, and everything else that's in the mix as well. We try and do that on a topical basis, and we use our website at foca.on.ca for transmitting a lot of this information, where we put on topical news items, information, best practices, and borrow liberally from all of the people you would have heard from already, and do so gladly. So thank you for all of you who supply a lot of the material, technical information, and ideas. We've been working with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, particularly on Asian carp over the last number of years. Again, it's a particular concern to many of our members. So we've hosted lots of information through our website, talking about the various threats from carp. If people didn't already know why they needed to care, you know, the physical threat, the ecological threat, and the socioeconomic challenges that they can pose once introduced. So while we don't always key in on species and we try to speak to more behaviors and pathways, Asian carp is one that's we've been particularly trying to focus on over the last number of years. We use our eLert, our electronic email system, which goes out at least monthly to about 11,000 people. So it's a way that we can effectively engage lots of people across the province on a regular basis on issues. Of course, we use a number of social media feeds, Twitter and our Facebook page to share messages about carp and about invasive species in general. And we, of course, have a newsletter like many do. Some people still read a newsletter. And so that goes out to all of our member associations, our executives, and others. We've also just recently been sending out these ID cards so that people can have a handy and durable guide in their wallet or in their pocket or their tackle box, their boat, so that they can try to identify and see the difference between grass carp and common carp. We've also been doing, in partnership with a number of partners over the years, pilot projects with our members. They're the people that have got the boots on the ground. They're the ones who have the local knowledge, the local expertise, and the volunteers. So we've worked with the ISC just recently, and previously with Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, to inform a bunch of community projects. So a lot of it involves having local messaging through local newsletters, making that message real and local for people when they have specific concerns. Fun stuff like t-shirts and events, a lot of door-to-door type of stuff, so in-person type of messaging. A lot of boat signage going on, a lot of the clean, drain, and dry boat signage at boat launches. A lot of surveillance work that's gone on, and some removal projects as well when it's possible at a grassroots level. So those are the kinds of things that our members have been interested to do, and we look forward to continuing to work with them in the years ahead. So there's some happy people working on some of the projects, including this Lake Smart project on the bottom left, which is in Lake of the Woods. So another great opportunity to get out to people and talk to them about the concerns in their neighborhood. Again, we use a lot of materials that we borrow from others, some of the fun messaging and things that are targeted to our specific audience. And that's why we think we've got a specific role as people that are a certain demographic, that have a certain interest and that we have access to. So we've got an opportunity to speak to them and use some messaging that's topical and useful to them. Ed Maps is something we've encouraged our members over the years to do. We've got a lot of eyeballs out on the water and in the forest, so we've got an opportunity to contribute to iNaturalist and Ed Maps, and we've tried to encourage that over the years to support that mapping systems. Everyone likes this carp costume, so I always throw this in. So at our events, we always try to we do have in-person events, or used to at least, and so we take the opportunity to include messaging and some fun stuff there too. For years, we've been distributing these. Thousands of these guides are in people's hands across the waterfront. So we mention invasive species liberally through all of these brochures and different items. So those things are available through our member associations to individuals. And most recently, we've been working with this Green Shovels Collaborative, as you've heard, and specifically on engaging cottage and lake associations in the Phragmites Collaborative. So a few pilot projects underway, as well as contributing to the overall strategy led by NCC and Ducks and OFAH and ISC and others. So we just try to encourage people to remember that we've got a lovely natural legacy here in Ontario, and if we can all do our best and do our part, that we cannot be part of the problem. So that's a big part of our messaging, and we we'll continue to do that and look forward to working with all of the partners in the future. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Hopefully, if you get a chance to work with some of our members, we're happy to make the connections. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Terry, for joining us today and taking the time to share a little bit about the work you guys do at FOCA. We're very happy to have you. Now we'll move on to our last speaker. Last but not least and last of the day, Brook Schryer, who is another Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters representative. Brook is the Aquatic Program Specialist with the Invading Species Awareness Program out of the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. In his 5 years with the program, his work has focused on aquatic invasive species outreach and education, including Asian carps, surveillance and monitoring for invasive species via the Early Detection and Distribution Mapping System, EDMAPS, and the Invading Species Hotline. He verifies accuracy of sighting information for aquatic and terrestrial invasive species so that any new detections can be reported to provincial and federal partners. He has a master's in sustainability studies from Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. This presentation will cover the importance of citizen science and Ontario's reporting tools and how these work together to complement early detection and rapid response for invasive species. These tools include the Invading Species Hotline, the Early Detection and Distribution Mapping System, EDMAPS, and the online webpage iNaturalist. Brook, I'm going to pass control over to you, and you should be able to share your screen now.
Great. Hopefully you can see that okay.
Yeah, looks great.
Beautiful. Okay, well, thank you so much. And thanks, Mackenzie, and thanks everybody for having me. As you mentioned, my name is Brook Schryer, and I am the Aquatic Program Specialist with the Invading Species Awareness Program and the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Sophie, who spoke before me, did a really good job giving a kind of a snapshot of the program as a whole. And she started to dabble into some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, but I'm going to flesh them out a little bit more, and hopefully I'll keep us on time here. So hopefully, if I can get my slides to move forward. There we go. Okay, so real quick agenda. I'm gonna just, very briefly talk about the importance of citizen science in combating invasive species. I think all of us on the line here, we all, have firsthand experience with this, and we do understand why these are so important. But I'm just gonna kind of reiterate it a little bit, and then I'm gonna go over an overview of the reporting tools in Ontario, so the things that we have in Ontario that provides the public with means to report invasive species, as well as just receive information about invasive species if they have questions. And then finally, I'm going to finish off with some past and present ISAP-led citizen science projects that we've done. So the importance of citizen science, I think it goes without saying, but in terms of the invasion curve of invasive species and the associated costs with these invasive species, if they're allowed to, establish and begin to spread, we've seen many awesome projects that are being undertaken by countless partners, and many of them have to do with prevention. And within prevention, we have education and outreach, and then beyond that, we have early warning and, in this case, eradication. So the importance of citizen science is really fundamentally about teaching members of the public what we're dealing with, why they should care, and then how to identify these species so that when they're on the landscape, they know it well enough to, see something that may not necessarily be something they see every day, and then to have the know-how to, maybe capture that photograph, mark their location, and then actually report it. And sometimes that can be the difference between a newly established species or maybe a potential eradication through early detection and rapid response. So these people not only learning these basics, but then actually applying that into citizen science is just so fundamentally important in combating invasive species. So once they're out on the landscape, once they, they're out there seeing the nasty gribblies, which we have here in Southern Ontario and the rest of Ontario, what means do they have? Well, they have the Invading Species Hotline, right? 1-800-563-7711. If you don't know, this hotline has been active since 1992, and it was really founded due to the introduction of zebra mussels into Lake St. Clair and the St. Clair River back in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was a species that showed up, started getting spread all across the province. People didn't really know what they were dealing with. Invasive species wasn't necessarily top of mind. And then, through the creation of the Invading Species Awareness Program and the Zebra Mussel Hotline, it then became and transitioned into the Invading Species Hotline over the years. So it is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and we do average about 1,000 phone calls every year. So we do run on the fiscal year, so April 1st to March 31st. So our fiscal year end is coming up, and as a result of that, we're exceptionally busy. But that being said, like I said, we receive about 1,000 calls a year over that time. But this year, 2020 in particular was a pretty spectacular year for invasive species. They aren't slowed down by something like COVID, right? We're all indoors, we're all social distancing. They're out there, they're still spreading, maybe a little bit less, or maybe a little bit more, because a lot of people are on the landscape and a lot of people were really enjoying nature in 2020 as a result of what was going on. But 2020 was a very special year, and by special I mean busy year, because we had so many extra phone calls. We were inundated, and we did have to adapt, because obviously, this is a picture of me at a desk at the OFAH office answering the phone. We're not really able to do that anymore at this time. We're all working from home. So we do have ISAP staff who do have the Invading Species Hotline with them and are answering phone calls. But in 2020, the big issues were Asian hornets and gypsy moths, which I think many people have already mentioned gypsy moths today. So beyond that, we have the application, which is for an iPhone or an Android, and the online web page, which is edmaps.org/Ontario, which is hopefully soon going to be edmaps.ca for all of Canada, which I'm really excited about. ISC is doing some great work adapting this reporting tool for all of Canada. And so this year, since April 1st, 2020, we have had over 2,000 confirmed, vetted, and released reports. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that goes into every single report that comes through. We require photographs because we want to make sure the legitimacy and the accuracy of the data that's going into our database, right? We want people to be able to pull and query that data and to have confidence that that data is accurate. So we make sure that we either identify it in-house if it's a fairly obvious species, or if it's a somewhat more obscure species, we'll make sure that that goes out to a specialist who will then be able to confirm for us. In total, we do track 189 different species, which to date since 2014 has totaled over 54,000 reports in Ontario's EDMAPs. Then in 2018, we decided to look at to other platforms, and the reason being is because it's great to have applications and web pages like EDMAPs, but the reality of these types of web pages and these types of reporting tools is that not everybody uses them, right? And to assume that everybody uses them would just be mistaken. So we recognize as a program that, hey, there are people using all sorts of different platforms. So why don't we start to delve into these platforms so that we can give a better landscape view of invasive species in Ontario? And that was really fundamentally what led to the creation of this project, the Invasive Species Project in Ontario and iNaturalist. And to date, we have hundreds of active members, 466 active members. That's increasing every single day. And to date, there's close to 70,000 invasive species reports in Ontario. And it really is a unique system, because unlike EDMAPs, where every single report that comes in comes to us and then we individually vet and confirm them, iNaturalist is a bit different in that reports that go into the program or the web page are then reviewed and identified by the community. So anybody can go onto iNaturalist and offer their opinion on what it is that they're identifying. Obviously, there are pros and cons to both methods, but again, the real importance here is that you're collating all of that data into a single place. So to give you guys some ideas, so now that you've seen the means or the avenues with which people can report, what happens when it comes to us, we have a number of triage and protocols that we have in place. So we have everything like the pre-screen protocol, which you have species like goutweed that fall into that, so obviously not a priority species. Well, it can be a priority to some people, but doesn't fall into some of these higher priority categories. So it goes through our pre-screen protocol. Then you have things like Asian carps. In this case, I'm showing silver carps, but the most likely culprit would actually be grass carp, which is the most imminent threat to our waters in Ontario. Then you have priority AIS not known in Ontario, such as the northern snakehead, Channa argus. Or priority AIS reported outside of their known distribution, such as round goby, right? If we were to have receive a report of round goby well outside of its known distribution, that is something that we would be, taking very seriously and reporting to our partners. Then you have priority TIS species not known in Ontario, such as mile a minute. You have other TIS reported outside of their known distribution, such as dog strangling vine. Then you have CFIA regulated species like Asian longhorn beetle. Then you have, which unfortunately many white-spotted sawyers have been killed in the combating of Asian longhorn beetle in Ontario. And then you have invasive pathogens such as oak wilt, and then wild pigs, which you know, if you got to listen to Keith's talk this morning, you would have heard all about wild pigs. So what does that look like? And this is very simplified, but you know, if each one of these bubbles, there's a lot that goes into every single one, right? But it just gives you an idea, kind of gives you a mind map around how do we handle these reports. What are the steps that we take, and ensuring that we're taking every single, you know, especially high priority species report very seriously, to ensure that any that do come through are then being vetted and, you know, and then hopefully not confirmed, but if suspected, being sent to our partners that need to know. And in the case of Asian carps, it fundamentally goes to Department of Fisheries and Oceans and to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Real quick, Asian carps year in review. We had, I think we're up to 42 reports now. I think the totals of these two graphs only equal 41, so I apologize about that. But what's really great, and if you notice on the left-hand pie graph, the grass carp section, or slice of the pie, I should say, has gotten a lot larger. And I really like to take credit, you know, for the Asian Carps Canada program that we're a part of, and, you know, Invasive Species Center and all of our partners who work so hard trying to really raise the profile for grass carp. You know, obviously all 4 species are a huge threat to our Great Lakes, but grass carp are the most imminent threat. And we've really tried to strain that in the last year and a half through our, you know, outreach, social media outreach, as well as our printed resources. And it's actually shown in the reports that have come in. Historically, that grass carp piece would have been about the same size as all the others. So it's starting to get larger, meaning that, you know, the knowledge base is increasing, which is fantastic. And then the means with which people report on the right-hand side, you can see after hours hotline, which happens in the summer for us. Thanks to DFO, we had 6 calls this past summer after hours about Asian carps, and then hotline calls, you had you know, 19, and then the program email and EDMAPS reports. Happy to report that we only had 1 triaged AC report sent to partners in 2020-2021, and it was a confirmed grass carp. So again, why is the public and citizen science so important? It leads to things like this. It leads to early detection. It leads to rapid response. This is, in this particular case, was a capture of 10 grass carp, which were reported to the invading species hotline. And, you know, we collated that data or that information. We passed it on to partners at DFO. They rapidly responded. They were able to remove these fish from our waters. That is why citizen science, that is why the public is so fundamentally important to combating invasive species. So real quick, I'm going to run over some of our past and present projects that we have going on. We used to have the Invading Species Watch, which always looked for zero muscle veligers and spiny water fleas. We did it for 20 years, and then, you know, through program changes, we decided that we were no longer going to run the program in 2018, but we were really happy that a group of people, really dedicated volunteers called the United Lakes Invasive Species Watch, stepped up. They formed a Facebook group. All these people were still concerned about these invasive species potentially showing up in their lakes. We provided them with all the kits that they required. We provided them with the bottles, and we also provided them with the technical expertise to go out and do this. And then what they did was they got all those samples, they sent them off for analysis, and then at the end of the year, they collated all of the samples that they got back with all the positives and negatives. They sent them to me, and then they got put into EDMAPS. So the program is functioning much in the same way, but now the onus has actually been put on those citizen scientists who are out there and doing the work. Water Soldier Watch Day, you know, Rob McGowan, I'm sure you heard from him before. He always does amazing work, and he works so well with the public. And as you can see here, obviously a bit different times what we're living with now. But, you know, every year he would put on a Water Soldier Watch Day where he would invite members of the public to come out, you know, be a citizen scientist for a day, come out, learn about Water Soldier, get out on the water, and help us survey for these species. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that moving forward, but we don't really know what that looks like at this time. Man, looking at these photos, it just reminds me of a different time. Annual garlic mustard pull was something that we did every year. We would, in this particular case, we actually invited a Fleming class out. Normally we put out a call for volunteers to come and help us, but you know, we've been dedicated to this garlic mustard pull every single year, teaching these students about what the species is, why it's such a detriment to our native ecosystems, and then walking through, you know, identification of first year, second year growth, and then the removal of the plant. So awesome time. Again, not sure what that's going to look like in the future. But now, moving forward, this past year, I was able to work with a great group called the Coalition of Halliburton Property Owners Associations, CHA for short, and I'm a project lead on this project, where we're actually teaching these folks not only how to identify Chinese mystery snail and banded mystery snail, but also how to differentiate these species from some of our native species, like Capilloma decisum, which is a native brown mystery snail, which we have here. So I'm going to be administering training in 2021, and then we are applying for a scientific collector's permit. I'll be the permit holder. I'm going to have about 120 licensees under that permit, and there's going to be a very formal process with which they're going to be able to remove these snails from their waters, as well as monitor for these snails, because they really are in a, you know, in the Halliburton region. There's kind of a new expansion of this species, so we want to make sure that we're detecting them early. Last project that I want to talk about is, you know, I think at this point I'm beating a dead wild pig. You know, the Green Shovels Collaborative, you know, we're all very fortunate to be working with Green Shovels. And again, if you watched Keith's presentation this morning, he talked all about this. This is one of the resources that you see here that we developed at the OFAH. This is our wild pig framework. And I'm actually spearheading this project this year on a camera loaner program. So I've purchased 70 trail cameras. We're going to be putting out a call for OFAH members to you know, borrow these cameras, put them up in areas where we want to survey for these wild pigs for 4-month periods, to ensure that they're not there. And if they are detected, that those detections are coming to us immediately, so then we can get that within 1 business day to our partners at the MNRF, so that they can hopefully get these wild pigs removed off our landscape. So that's just some of the work that we're doing. You know, there's always new and upcoming citizen science projects which we try, and there's a number that I even didn't mention, but I know Sophie touched on. So that being said, hopefully I kind of kept us on time here. And if you guys have any questions, you can shoot me an email at brook_Schryer@ofah.org, or you can send an email generally to the info@invadingspecies.com, which is our program email. I just want to thank you guys again. Thank you, Mackenzie, for putting this on, and yeah.
Thank you so much, Brooke. What a great overview of all of the amazing projects going on there right now. Definitely looks like you had a busy 2020. So I'd just like to take this time now to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. I know we ran a little bit late, so I'll make this quick. I just wanted to share some information about tomorrow morning's sessions. Unlike the past 2 days, we're starting a little bit earlier tomorrow morning at 8:30, but we're going to have a really great talk by Sue Chiblow, who is, she's from Garden River First Nation, and she's going to be doing a talk on how everything is connected and about women's water governance. So I think I would definitely recommend checking that out. I've seen her speak before, and she's a wonderful speaker, and I think it'll really set the tone for the day. With a great Phragmites session planned beginning at 9, and then an afternoon of aquatic invasive species with our Asian carp session at 1 p.m. and then some more research knowledge and outreach on aquatic invasives starting at 3. So I hope to see you all tomorrow, and have a great evening. Thank you to all of our speakers and everybody that attended this session today.